Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real People, Real Perspectives. You're in the right place. We're going to wait a couple minutes and allow a couple minutes for people to get online. So you're in the right place. If you want, you could also go into the chat and just introduce yourself. Just identify yourself because we're going to be encouraging you networking with one another. So you can do that while we wait to get started. Thank you for coming. Hello, everyone. You are in the right place. Real people, real perspectives. We're real excited to have you here. If you want, take a moment and you can identify yourself in the chat. The chat's a place where you are all going to be able to network with one another. You could also be sending in questions. So while we're waiting to get started, I encourage you to identify yourself in the chat. Hi, everyone. It looks like we're getting a bunch of people getting on. Welcome to Real People, Real Perspectives. We're going to just wait just another minute and allow others to join today. Thanks for joining us. Again, we're encouraging people to identify yourself in the chat. We're going to be using the chat. It's a great feature for you all to be networking with one another. And it's also a great feature for you guys to be asking any questions that you want our team to be answering. So welcome. We're just going to wait like another minute here. Just make sure that we're all on. Good afternoon, everyone. So one final time, I want to welcome everyone. You're in the right place. Real people, real perspectives. We're just kind of giving giving people a chance to get on. I am going to encourage you all to identify yourself in the chat. We're going to be using that chat to network with one another. So Abby, in about 30 seconds, I'm going to get started here. So I'm going to get started. I want to welcome everyone to Real People, Real Perspectives. My name is Wendy Verna from Octo Design Group, and I'm excited to be with you today. Octo is a marketing business, and we had the pleasure of working with the Philadelphia Opportunity Zone team. And our work began with a marketing study, and that's where we heard that Philadelphia is truly unique. We all know it's unique, but it's unique in that we have a clear message of what we're seeking to see in our Opportunity Zone projects. So the OZ team is excited about supporting all projects that align to our goal of inclusive growth. Next slide. So I want to welcome you all to Real People, Real Perspectives. This is the 4th forum. And during this forum, you're going to have a chance to view 4 short videos of key stakeholders giving their real perspective regarding equitable development. In between each video, you're going to be prompted with a question that we encourage you all to answer in the chat below. And we're asking everyone to identify themselves in this chat upon entering. And the reason being is that is a place where you're all going to be able to network with one another. And it's also a place where you're all going to be able to ask some questions. We're excited to have Jessica Coulter from the PIDC and John Monlock from the OZ team. And they're going to be moderating that chat today. So they're going to also be an intricate part in answering any questions that you have. In addition, we've initiated a poll, and the poll will pop up. You guys might have already seen that And we are doing that to encourage additional participation throughout our time together. And we encourage you to answer these polls. And this will give us a way to get to know you a little bit better, to hear your voices. But don't worry, if for some reason your comments or questions don't get answered during our time together, we're going to be sending you along a follow-up email, and that way we'll be able to keep the conversation going. So now I'd like to introduce you to Ann Nevins, President of the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, known as the PIDC. We are excited to have Ann lead our discussion today, and throughout the chat, you'll have the ability to ask her questions. So Ann, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and please tell us a little bit more about the PIDC, as well as the PIDC's role in supporting development in opportunity zones.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's always great to be a part of this conversation with a PIDC client such as yourself. And I see many other PIDC clients and partners in the chat. So hello, everyone. It's great to be with you here today. For those who are not already familiar with our organization, PIDC is Philadelphia's Economic Development Corporation. We have been around since 1958, and we work as a joint partnership between the City of Philadelphia and the business community through the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia to try and achieve our mission, which is focused around driving growth to every corner of Philadelphia. The three main things that we focus on in order to try to do that are one, supporting the growth and resilience of our businesses, and particularly Philadelphia's small businesses. The second is investing in high impact community revitalization projects. And I think that's a lot of what we'll talk about here today, specifically with respect to opportunity zones. And the third is catalyzing opportunities for inclusive growth, particularly through our real estate assets and activities. And that's another area where we have some intersection with the Opportunity Zones program. But Wendy, to answer the second part of your question in terms of what PIDC's role is with respect to opportunity zones, we have been glad to be part of the working team in partnership with the city, and specifically the planning and development team, as well as the Commerce Department, since really the initiation of the program back in at the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018. And we have really focused PIDC's efforts around the ways in which the resources that we have access to as an economic development lender and as a community development financial institution can help to support the kinds of projects that we want to see happen in opportunity zones. I think one thing that became pretty clear pretty quickly with respect to the opportunity zone, I don't want to say program, but respect to the opportunity zones or tax incentive, is that it's not necessarily a subsidy for projects. And so oftentimes what our role has been over these past couple of years is really coming in and providing the types of resources that are critical to helping bridge gaps in the capital stack and kind of make that difference between a project being able to happen and to move forward, and a project not being able to do that. And that's how we like to think about our role in terms of supporting investment in opportunity zones, but also really throughout every part of Philadelphia.
And thank you so much. That was awesome. So as I mentioned, we're going to hear from a couple stakeholders here. And our next slide, our first video is Joji Varghese from the Urban Affairs Coalition.
Thank you. My name is Joji Varghese. I work at the Urban Affairs Coalition, and I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development. And what that means is that I have a series of committees and subcommittees that I sort of convene quarterly throughout the year, or in ad hoc nature, financial wellness, foreclosure prevention, affordable housing issues. But the subcommittee that really brought us here was the Impact Development Roundtable. The Urban Affairs Coalition convenes a roster of probably upwards of 150 members of the region. These are socially conscious developers, lenders, capitalists, foundations, PIDCs all over that roster. And we routinely get about 50 to 60 members. And the goal of this subcommittee is to really try to identify some amazing efforts of socially impactful real estate, either in the region or in the country somewhere. And we bring that impactful project to Philadelphia, and we have this roster of folks really try to learn more about this project, the financing, the community outreach, the capital stacks needed, and so forth. And the overall goal of this group is to really try to elevate socially outcome real estate projects here in the Philadelphia market in a much more tangible way. So we learn from San Diego, we learn from Cincinnati, we learn from Mission First Housing in West Philadelphia, actually. So we try to really find some amazing projects and have this very large group of people really soak up all the issues, the hardships, the challenges, and all the benefits of this in an effort that we build a much more socially impactful Philadelphia. Certainly, while I'm not a builder in any way possible, I've always had the thought that some of the big projects, or really a lot of the projects in Philadelphia, have gone to those who are in the know, if you will. And in the know, I don't know what that really means, but the reality is there's all kinds of benefits and opportunities and resources that various people have, and they take advantage of them. So I thought the city did a great job of having that new website, the Opportunity Zone website, and I believe it's an app as well. I think what that really does for the community is with a little bit of level setting, making sure that all entities, all players, all communities can really at least have the access to this information. What they do with it is up to them. But in the very least, you now have a bunch of folks, surely more diverse, that have a direct say in what they think could go into this community. And it could be a developer that might be a person of color. It could be the folks that work there. It could be the people that are training there. It could just be the people that are benefited by the outcome. I think having a much more diverse real estate project development team is really important. I think, at least in my lifetime in Philadelphia, it just seems to have skewered in a different direction. So I really thank the city of Philadelphia for taking a much more proactive approach towards this 2020 and beyond.
So that was great to hear from Joji. The next slide, on this slide, you're going to see our first question. And this question, the one on the slide, is for you, our attendees. And make sure that you answer this in the chat. Be sure to identify yourself as well. So how are you currently connecting with others, in your efforts to grow? And so please answer that in the chat. And while you're doing that, Anne, I understand that the PIDC attends these roundtables that Joji mentioned, and we know there's a lot of collaboration that happens there. How does the PIDC see partnership and collaboration in terms of advancing inclusive growth?
Thanks, Wendy. So yes, we definitely participate actively in the roundtable that Joji was talking about in that video. And I would strongly encourage, especially for any of the real estate developers that are on the Zoom, that if you have not yet connected with my colleagues Lawrence McComey and Sarah Stroney, who are our real estate finance team, I would strongly encourage a connection with those two. Either Jessica or John Monlek or I can, help with that. But more broadly to the question around collaboration, given what I mentioned in the introduction, and the fact that PIDC itself is a public-private partnership, I think that collaboration is almost really in our DNA. And so, some recent examples that I would give on that front and how important it is have been in the recent relief programs related to the impacts of the pandemic. So PIDC was proud to partner with the City of Philadelphia. I think I see Karen Fagley on here and Heloise from the Commerce Department. We were very excited to, partner with our colleagues in the Commerce Department last spring to try to bring one of the first in the country local relief programs, even before the launch of any of the federal programs like the Paycheck Protection Program, to try to bring dollars to the businesses who immediately started to feel an impact in the pandemic. And we're just now in the process this week of launching yet another round of relief for those businesses that have been struggling the most due to the mandated shutdowns, and specifically focusing on our restaurants and gym and indoor fitness businesses. So that's, I think, a great example of collaboration and partnership. Another one that took place over last summer was the collaboration between 17 Pennsylvania-based business lending CDFIs, community development financial institutions, of which PIDC is one. I saw one of our colleagues from Community First Fund on the line here as well. They're another one of the partners, and their leader, Dan Betancourt, was really instrumental in bringing together this coalition of partners as a whole network of 17 CDFIs that got together to distribute $225 million to support small businesses across Pennsylvania, of which 50% of those funds were dedicated to historically disadvantaged businesses, meaning 51% or more owned by Black, Hispanic, Asian or Asian American, Native American, or Pacific Islander individuals that have been historically locked out of capital access. So I think those are two recent examples in terms of our small business activity around collaboration and partnerships. And one that I know we're about to get to next, and before Wendy cuts me off, I'll just mention, a great collaboration that's being brought together in the private sector is The Collective, which is a group of Black-led development companies as well as funders that are kind of coming together, and that PIDC and others are looking to partner with in terms of how do we do more in terms of supporting Black-led development companies for real estate projects in Philadelphia. So we can talk a little bit more about that when we get to one of our next partners.
So thanks, Anne. So now, actually, along those lines, we're going to hear from Sandra Dungy Glenn from The Collective.
Hi, I'm Sandra Dungy Glenn, and I am the founder and convener for The Collective, and happy to be talking with you today. I think one of the major benefits, if you would, of the Opportunity Zone program is that it can serve as a magnet for attracting the capital and the kinds of capital that can really reimagine and re-anchor Philadelphia's core neighborhoods. And in order to do that, though, I think there are a couple of things that the program should be pretty confident about. And one of those is changing the lens through which we look at many of our neighborhoods, particularly, I would say, Black and brown neighborhoods. They're often viewed through a lens of deficit versus the assets that are in these communities. And when I think of assets, I think of neighborhoods that have viable block clubs, that have drill teams and football teams, that have active senior centers. And those are all neighborhood assets that have shown that the residents there are still investing in their neighborhoods, even if there are a number of vacant properties, even if there are challenges with the business strip. Those things can be replaced, but one of the most, I think, valuable and intangible assets is still the human investment and the community investment that's there. And I think for the Opportunity Zone programs to recognize that and be able to identify that in communities is critical. The other thing that I believe is that the Opportunity Zone programs need to be anchored in the needs and the priorities of the neighborhoods they're seeking to partner with or serve. And so that's really why The Collective came together. We are a enterprise that is a collection of Black developers and other real estate professionals from the legal community, from finance, from banking. My background has been in public policy, community organizing, education. And so we wanted to leverage the experience that we have around the table and look at how we can create a larger footprint for the type of development that these companies have been undertaking, many of them for a decade or more. And together, we have an array of skills and skill sets that are helping these developers expand the size of the projects that they're able to take on, and also the partnerships that are emerging from the collective itself. And so one of the things that the Opportunity Zone program can bring to this network of developers that are part of the collective are there two types of capital that they say that they really struggle with. One type is the early in money, pre-development money. You know, for a number of reasons. One of them, understanding that systemic racism is still very real. They don't oftentimes have access to the same capital sources. So having a source of that kind of pre-development money is one need. And if that is a space that the Opportunity Zone program can look to in terms of the kinds of fund that it may be able to put together, that would be very helpful to these developers.
That's great. Um, Thank you, Sandra. And then our next question, Sandra spoke a lot about assets. And so what assets can be leveraged to support inclusive growth in your community? And I'd like to invite you all to answer that question in the chat. And so Anne, while they're doing that, what do you see as strengths of Philadelphia Opportunity Zones for investment?
Sure. Thanks, Wendy. Well, I think, one of the things that Sandra touched on was that notion around human capital. And I think that's really important to Philadelphia as a whole. That's absolutely, I think, one of our strengths is the scale of our city and the scale of our, population, the scale of the opportunity that exists here to access customers and markets. I think that also goes to the diversity of our population and the diversity of our talent that we have here. I think Philadelphia is a place where lots of different ideas and different experiences can create opportunity to have all sorts of new business ventures and new development ideas really come to be able to grow and thrive. Pre-pandemic, Philadelphia had been on a fairly long, at least for our history, streak, over the past 10 plus years around population, job, and business growth. We have obviously, like many other places, seen a lot of losses of that over the last 9 months. And I think that the strengths that we have in terms of our human capital, in terms of our population, we still have a lot that we need to address in terms of our education system and workforce development and talent pipelines and how we're connecting people to the opportunities that exist today, while we also work to create more opportunities for people to have access to in the future. But I think we do have a lot to build from. And I think the other thing that is important about Philadelphia is really the diversity of our economy. We are not, a single industry economy. And I think that has been incredibly important to our resilience, even in the current pandemic. There are pockets of, our economy that have been really strong throughout the pandemic. There are other sectors that have been struggling tremendously. And so I think we need to we need to take from our strengths and build back in those areas where we have lost ground over the last year. And I think as we do that, as we think about how we are going to come out of the impact of the pandemic, one of the other things that Sandra brought up in the video that I think is really important to remember is that we need to maybe seize this opportunity to, I don't want this to sound like a campaign slogan, but, build back better, to come out of this on a different path or trajectory, even than we were going into this. While I said, that we had had a strong streak in terms of job and population growth, one of the areas that we were not growing jobs as fast as our peers is in that middle wage, middle income type of tier. Call it the $35,000 up to $100,000. We were growing a lot of jobs in the low wage categories, and we were growing, some jobs at the high wage categories, but we were really behind our peers in terms of that middle wage, middle income job opportunities. And so I think that's something that we have an opportunity to shift as we come out of this, and to be more strategic in terms of how we invest and how we really push the needle in terms of that type of opportunity, and maybe the opportunity zones and the ways to attract equity capital through that program can be a boost to how we can do that.
That's great. And thanks for going into that. Now, next slide, we get to hear from Jim Burnett.
I'm Jim Burnett. I'm the Executive Director for West Philadelphia Financial Services Institution. And we provide small loans to real estate developers throughout the city of Philadelphia. We've been making loans to small developers for almost 15 years now. And we're excited to see really the impact that those small developers actually have on communities. In a lot of cases, they're going into communities with a lot of challenges, a lot of vacant property. And these developers are helping improve neighborhoods, bring new family and new life to these communities. And now there's new opportunities. And in fact, it's new opportunity zones. And that opportunity zones will give these small developers really a chance to raise capital to allow them to build and expand their development businesses. So WPFSI, West Philadelphia Financial Services Institution, is excited to let everyone know that you can come to us for these opportunities. We work a little bit differently than your traditional lender because we're actually concerned about your growth as a business person and not just as somebody who needs a loan. We want to become a partner with you, and we do what we can to protect you against contractors and against making mistakes in terms of your investments. So WPFSI is there for the small, in a lot of cases, minority developers, and we're looking forward to working with you in the future. So WPFSI works with PIDC, PHDC, and a host of other city agencies. In addition to that, we work with other lenders, including other CDFIs, which are Community Development Financial Institution, to identify the right product for you and your development project. In addition to that, we work with small businesses. So as we try to create an ecosystem around real estate development, we also could fund your contractors if they're having challenges with coming up with the early money for materials or labor. We also want to help suppliers that are out there, small suppliers. Whether it's your attorney, your architect, we help small businesses of all types. And we have the capital that's necessary to get your project done.
So the next question is, we would like you, what does a sustainable neighborhood look like to you? And if you can answer that in the chat and just kind of elaborate on what a sustainable neighborhood looks like to you. And you know, Jim mentions these layers that are needed in order to build a sustainable, inclusive growth project. And so what's PIDC's role in this ecosystem?
Sure. Thanks, Wendy. And I should mention too that Jim Burnett and West Philadelphia Financial Services Institute are another one of the leading members of the Pennsylvania CDFI network that I had mentioned earlier in terms of the collaboration that's come together around the statewide grant program, and a collaboration that we are very much looking to take forward in new ways from here. Not let that be a one-time thing, but really work in a much more strategic partnership way going forward. So that's been terrific to get to work with Jim on that over the last year. And he is absolutely right about the layers. There's often many different layers and many different acronyms to the many different layers that sort of can come along with making a project work. So we're here talking today about OZs or QOZs, and then there's NMTC and CDBG and EDA and HUD and RACP, and you could kind of go on. And I think our role as PIDC, and I specifically mentioned our real estate finance team earlier, but we also have a business lending team that works with operating businesses, which is equally important. And I think our role for our team members is really about understanding the business or understanding the project, evaluating what the needs are, and then kind of behind the scenes, pulling from that alphabet soup of all of the different resources, not just what does PIDC, have available directly, but how do we partner with an organization like Jim's, or how do we work with the city or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or how do we connect in with private investors? I see, a number of private investors, in the chat. How can we sort of help to pull all of those resources together in a way that's going to be the best fit for that project and really make it accessible either for the business owner, the developer, the tenant, whomever it is that we're trying to work with to make something happen, make an investment happen that might not otherwise be possible in Philadelphia. And so that, I think is really PIDC's role in bringing those resources to the table. We often play a role in generating those resources. So we go out and on behalf of Philadelphia, apply for resources from the federal government or from the state or from banks and foundations. And, our mission is to put those resources to work in the city of Philadelphia. That's all we do. PIDC is, unapologetically, city focused in terms of our mission. And so we go out and try to bring as many resources as we can to Philadelphia, and then try to get them to work in as many businesses and projects as possible. And I think also I want to, note that both Sandra and Jim mentioned some things that I think we're also starting to really try to focus on, and perhaps might be, some new things that we'll be looking at how we can help address, particularly for Black and people of color developers, around that pre-development and acquisition type of funding. We don't necessarily have, that in hand at the moment, but we clearly see the need. We hear, that, and are looking at opportunities to see how we can try to address that.
Great. John or Jessica, is there any comments that have come through the chat that maybe you feel are worth bringing to the forefront and that you want to discuss? I know, John, you always have a good eye for bringing anything out, whether it was a comment or a question.
Yeah, I think Ann Nevin's been multitasking and reading some of the chat, because a lot of there's a lot about getting investors, what's the right type of OZ, like some of the technical and this, like how to put a deal together, which I think is fascinating for me. I find it very interesting. It's also entertaining at parts. But the only question I guess for Ann is, and she kind of touched on it, and so I will put my contact information to help folks connect directly with Sarah or Lawrence if they have specific questions and want to talk. But to the extent that there's anything you left out about products that that PIDC has that helps with these types of deals, because that a lot of the chat is about, even the poll results, financing, money, lending, grants, loans was the top response, not surprisingly. And so, again, is there anything specific that PIDC, or is this something better to be brought directly to the attention of Sarah and Lawrence to see if there could be something there?
Thanks so much, John. And yes, you are right. They certainly, for the developers on the phone, that they are the experts and kind of the key people to get to know at PIDC. And I would say similarly for our business lending team, Art Jimenez is probably the person that if you are, a operating business owner and want to reach out and follow up, with me or Jessica after this, we'll probably end up putting you in touch with Art to, to assess the needs and what we can do there. But I think just in terms of a little bit more detail around some of the what it is that we can do, I think that, again, we don't necessarily right at this moment have that front end capital available at PIDC for the pre-development and the acquisition of properties on I don't want to say speculative basis necessarily, but at a time when someone is not ready to move immediately forward with a concrete project. At the moment, our resources are generally going to be best suited when you're coming in and you're saying, okay, I know that I'm going to build a grocery store. I know that I'm going to, build a mixed use project with ground floor commercial with, 3 to 4 different small business tenants and some apartments above, or I'm going to build a community health center. Once there's really a project lined up with a site, and then we can kind of come in and assess what are the capital resources that we have that are the best fit to support the needs of the development of the project. And, they do really range a lot in terms of how much sort of subsidy there is. And the subsidy value is generally going to be dependent on the impact of the project. So for example, one of the programs that we offer locally is New Markets Tax Credits. That's a federal program, but PIDC applies. And again, our application is just for projects that are located in the city of Philadelphia. And for the New Markets Tax Credit program, it's geographically restricted. It's different from the opportunity zones, though there certainly is overlap. But New Markets is restricted to those, areas with certain rates of unemployment and income levels to ensure that the dollars are going to the more highly distressed communities and that the investment is getting where it's needed, and that it can't just be any type of investment, but that there really is, I think, a very thoughtful and detailed approach to what project is being proposed, what the impact of that project would be in terms of the existing community, existing residents, existing business owners, and to the extent that it fits the criteria in terms of the impact that we would be looking to see, and that the program federally is looking to see, then that can be a great fit for New Markets Tax Credit investment through PIDC when we have those credits available. And that really does provide a direct subsidy to a project. The dollars act more like grants or equity in that particular case. There are other products that we offer where it's really more of a loan and it's a gap filler. We can take more risk than a commercial bank would be able to take. And so because we can do that, and because we also price it much more affordably than any, other, I think, type of lender without our mission would be able to do, given the sources of capital that we have, that can help to fill gaps in projects. But it's a different type of subsidy. So a loan, we expect it to get repaid. You're going to have to go through an underwriting process, all of that. But there is a range in terms of the different types of products that are available depending on the type of project, the location of the project, and also just the availability of different resources at different points in time. I'll just give one, particular example that did, I think, have probably just about all the alphabet soup in it in terms of a really high impact project that we're very excited about that we just closed on earlier this month, which is Supra EMSCO's new headquarters and operational facility in West Parkside. So this is a Black-owned business that has been around for a long time. They were able to secure a tremendous opportunity to grow through new contracts and grow their business in the medical supply field, but they needed a new facility in order to really be able to move forward with that new opportunity. And so we were able to sell them the land that they will build the new facility on, provide New Markets Tax Credits, provide other loan financing, and also help facilitate some state grant capital that was awarded to the project. So that's one that we're really excited about. And also both the impact and also the fact that we were able to pull all those complicated pieces together and get it done.
Well, that is a great segue actually into our next video, which is our very own Kathy Califano.
I'm Kathy Califano, First Deputy at the Department of Planning and Development. I am coordinating our joint strategy in Philadelphia around opportunity zones. PIDC, PHDC, Redevelopment Authority, Planning and Development with the Planning Commission, Historic Commission, and Commerce are trying to work together in a new way to ensure that when projects are moving through the process, that you're able to maximize the resources that we collectively have. We've brought together through this series residents, small businesses, construction companies, retail establishments, and stakeholders. And all of these partners are trying to build a better path forward for Philadelphia. And we hope, as you come and you want to be a part of that solution with us, you engage those stakeholders in constructive conversations. We do this to ensure that your project and our neighborhoods are collectively moving forward. There's a real opportunity here to maximize the potential for return. The return to the investors, but also the social capital return to neighborhoods and communities. And when we do that, we stabilize property values, which is in everyone's best interest. We bring new amenities to communities. We create jobs. And all of those things work to better Philadelphia and the Philadelphia region. People are working from home. They need new amenities and new services in their neighborhoods. They need the local coffee shop. They want the restaurant. And that demand creates better places for our neighbors in our community. We also know that there's people been struggling through pushing their business and their projects forward. And those barriers have existed for a long time. So think about who you partner with and who are the people doing the work in the neighborhoods today, and now how they can be a collective part of the project. We need investment, but we need investors who care about our neighborhoods and communities and are willing to collaborate to develop joint solutions. We've been grateful for all of the speakers who've stepped up in this series and offered advice, suggestions, and told their personal story. We hope to continue that as we move forward. And we hope you'll watch the full series to learn those range of stories together too. Lastly, we as a team are working to push this mantle forward and build on the foundation of inclusive growth. We hope to engage you through this process, and we hope you help us on our journey. We believe our opportunities of neighborhoods have lots of strengths to build upon. Their residents, their assets, the physical space. Each of these have an opportunity for you to connect, collaborate, and support moving forward. Keep the lines of communication open, reach out to us, and work with us to suggest strategies that we may not be considering today, but that you think will help us complete our goal of keeping Philadelphia's neighborhoods on the map and on the path to success.
So now is really, I guess, your chance, which is the big question is, what can the OZ team do to support you? And Anne, what is the city and the PIDC doing to support recovery in the Opportunity Zone neighborhoods? I mean, I know that as a woman-owned business myself, that I've appreciated all the up-to-the-minute, updates, resources that the PIDC has been able to distribute throughout this entire pandemic. Are you able to share the type of recovery information a business may receive, like when they stay connected to you?
Sure. Thanks, Wendy. And I think my colleague Jessica will probably end up dropping some of these links into the chat. But I think one of the most important things I would recommend is to, sign up for our newsletter, because we send it out just on a monthly basis. You won't get bombarded, but we do, I think, try to send out really critical information through that channel, and then our social media. So that's another area where we really have been trying, especially during the pandemic, to provide, as you said, kind of up to the minute or as close as we can make it, resources, especially focusing on funding. So that, obviously is something that PIDC is very close to. Some of the programs are running through us or through our partners. But in other cases, it's, federal or other programs, even in the private sector, that we just know about and have tried to work really hard to compile and put all in one place, try to make it as clear as possible as what's open, what's closed, what's coming up in the near future. And so Jessica and her team in our marketing communications area really do a tremendous job in trying to spread the word about all of these resources. And in addition to, spreading the word, I mean, I think we are also very much trying to focus on action and what are the things that PIDC is doing to support economic recovery and an equitable economic recovery in Philadelphia. So we, in partnership with the city, as well as Philadelphia Works, which is the workforce development organization for Philadelphia, have aligned around a 4-phase approach with respect to an equitable economic recovery. And that is respond, restart, recharge, and reimagine. We certainly are still in a lot of ways in the initial response phase right now, trying to put out as many relief measures as we can for the businesses that have been most heavily impacted. But we're also simultaneously in the restart mode and working with many businesses and projects that are ready to get going again or looking to pivot or figure out how they can try to move forward. And so we had put together and published last June, I believe it was, our Restart Action Plan. And since that time, we've been putting out monthly updates on different topics that highlight what we've been doing in terms of advancing those strategies. Again, I think I saw John put one of the links to that from our blog into the chat. It's also all available through our social media channels, and I think we're also very much open and interested in feedback. So I'll be eager to go back and read through the chat from this, as well as some of the polling information, and see how that can help us inform how we develop our recovery strategies moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you. So next slide. So I just want, again, so we had launched an OZ website, which is philaopportunityzones.org. I encourage everyone to go visit. It provides information and resources, and it also allows you to connect to all of those acronyms that Anne was speaking about, like PHDC, PIDC, DBD, programs and services. So it's a place where you can really read the blogs, you can get quick links to social platforms, and you can gather all types of information on programs that complement any kind of OZ initiative. And the next slide, we invite you to connect with us on all our social media, and we're posting, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, almost daily. And we'd love to see all of you there because I think it's just great to stay connected. Next slide. We will, just in kind of closing us up to make sure that we don't go too far over our time limit here, we will be sending out a post-attendee survey. And we'll be asking you what types of events you'd like that you found valuable and what would be great moving forward. We really, and as Catherine mentioned, want to stay connected to you. So we were excited that today with Anne, we were able to conclude our 4-part series. And we all had the privilege of hearing from Anne Fedulin, David Thomas, Michael Rashid, and now Ann Nevins. And as Kathy mentioned, I don't know if she mentioned this in her video, but if you missed one of the series, they will be uploaded to the philaopportunityzone.org website, so you'll be able to catch up. And as Anne mentioned, being able to review the chat and kind of go over things is going to be extremely helpful. So Anne, if you have any closing remarks, I'm going to kind of throw this back to you, and then that will at the end conclude our forum today.
Thank you again, Wendy. And again, it's been really great to be here with so many PIDC clients and partners. I'm also happy to have the opportunity to connect with new folks as well through this type of a forum. I really hope that you all will follow some of the links in the chat to stay connected to PIDC, but also, more broadly to this Opportunity Zone working group and partnership with the city, the Planning and Development Department, and the Commerce Department. We, I think, are all kind of aligned around trying to move forward in this economic recovery strategy. And in order to be successful in that, we need to hear what the needs are, stay up to speed with what all of you are seeing as you are trying to undertake your own projects, working with clients to try to invest, develop, or grow a business in Philadelphia. And it's most important for us to be able to have these types of opportunities to hear directly from you. So thank you all for being here today. This has been really great. And thank you, Wendy, for hosting.
Thank you all, and it's been great. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.